Alright, so today I am demonstrating a model for making a vermiculture compost bin. I have two pieces of wood to place in between my two Rubbermaid containers, both 18-gallon with lids, a couple cups of water, and we'll get to that in a bit, as well as some paper and collected organic material over the last couple days that I was preparing for this project. I also have my big red worms acquired from a local bait shop. These are actually a specific species that I will link in the that I will leave in the video comments. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it. They are native to the Netherlands and directly imported. So these are basically like the parent species of the red wigglers common to the United States that came to us via the Mayflower and are commonly used in composting. A little bit of a purchasing restriction there for me for the current times that we're in. So these are the ones that I'm working with, and we're going to see what they can do for us. And I will go step by step through the process for creating a vermiculture compost bin. So first one, power tools. If you've never used them before, I suggest getting some help, some quick tutorials to prevent any sort of bodily harm or injury to yourself, others, pets, or I guess your habitat. You don't want to break something that isn't already broken. So safety first, kids, and I'm quite familiar with them, so I'm a little comfortable. This is not a project I have tackled before, so we're going to see how we do. I am also sitting on my step, so if anything goes off screen or anything needs clarification, we can touch on that later. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to grab the lid of one of the Sterilite containers that I plan to use for the worms. So the setup for this particular model is to have two containers so that you are able to place one inside of the other. So two bins. And the second lid isn't really necessary. I'm just doing that because the model I chose, that is what they used for their example as well, and it makes me feel a little bit better to have that under their habitat. So you'll have the first one, and it will be one that I will also be drilling some holes into. Actually, let's just go ahead and start with this one. It will be, I'll probably do about 6 holes with a 1/8 drill bit that I've already put into my drill, and this will be to help with any sort of water retention or water produced by the system. And so once it is placed inside of the second or outer bin, the blocks will go in between the two, and it will keep it elevated so that any water runoff can go into that second bin to be caught. So let's go ahead and put some in the bottom here. I chose to do this on stairs because I felt a little safer having solid surface front and bottom to hold instead of asking for assistance. So we shall see. I'm going to go very gently. I've never actually drilled into a Rubbermaid container before. Oh, okay, living our best lives. That was way easier than I thought it would be. And perfect. So for the sake of some symmetry and balance, I'm going to do the 4 corners first, and then probably put some in between. So the idea here as I go along is that the worms are going to be placed into this habitat with organic material and waste, a list that is generally just table scraps, fruits, vegetables, meats, non-oily things, non-acidic things, that the worms will enjoy, as well as some paper. I shredded some up before I threw it away the other day, and then I will probably just hand tear and speed through that part, and then add a little bit of water so that it is, I believe, the person whose idea I'm modeling this after, so that it's just easier for them to digest. You want it to be a little bit moist, as well as giving them some table scraps of like coffee grinds, some espresso grinds. I believe I have broccoli, watermelon, some strawberries. No dairy. They are not able to eat dairy. And I'm going to put I'm just going to pull it out. I'm going to put my 5th and now my 6th hole in the bottom here. And, alright, I'm going to pull out the plastic. I really don't want them eating any remnants, so I'm just going to double back and poke through to make sure I caught it all. Perfect. Alright, so anyway, the idea is that the red wigglers, my little worm clan here, the wormtang clan, is going to consume the organic material that's going to be placed in their habitat and compost it themselves just by eating and creating worm castings. Their poop is quite useful, golden in the garden, and that will be something that I will implement in later projects as well. It's also a really good way to eliminate some of the waste that my household produces just simply by existing. And I really am enjoying the concept of feeding it into another system that yields a useful product, as well as eliminating some of the volume of waste that we produce. So I'm going to get started on the top lid. I've completed the 6 holes in the bottom. Let me tilt a little so you can kind of see 3 on the top row, 3 on the bottom. Doesn't have to be too much. And then I'm going to put a lot more holes in the top here. The worms actually, this is an aerobic process, meaning that they do require oxygen. They typically, if I remember correctly, prefer to dwell about 6 inches below the surface. So sometimes you got to cover their food up a little bit so that they don't really have to come up to the top, but they do have to have oxygen able to get into their system to survive. So I'm going to go ahead and put about 20, I believe, the example that I'm following, I believe that gentleman said that he put about 20 in the top, and it looked like a pretty good number. Just lots of ways to keep oxygen flowing through to them, and the point, I believe, of the 1/8 drill bit is so that it is small enough that they can't crawl through. I really don't want any creepy crawlies in my household out of the area that I intended them to live in. So I will just put plenty in. I'll probably cover this top space and then speed that process up so you all don't have to watch through all of that. Also going to grab some coffee real quick. It was a very long day, and motherhood is not for the under-caffeinated. So, all right, let's get to worming. Compost rules everything around me. Alright, so I am placing these about the width of 3 fingers apart so that we can have plenty of oxygen to get through, and I'm trying to monitor the amount of plastic in and out. Obviously, I'll take the top off after I'm finished putting these through as well, just like I did on the bottom, to make sure that my worms aren't eating any plastic. So obviously space it out, just like handling a firearm, keeping my finger off the trigger so we don't take off any fingers in the process. And there we go. All right, so let's see. 8 times 3, 24. A long day, hard one for mental math. So a little bit over the original 20, but I do want to make sure, since it's a full 18-gallon system, that they can get plenty of oxygen. All right, put that off to the side, and I'm just going to flip this over, like I said, double check and make sure that there's not any loose plastic that they can get a hold of, along with dairy, acidic foods, and fatty foods. Plastic, I don't believe is allowed in their diets. The other thing I wanted to mention about the paper that I intend to finish shredding and putting into their system cannot be a glossy paper, no magazine paper. We get a local parish newspaper, and so I've been setting those aside when I get them. I don't like to throw away things that I can recycle, but we also don't live in a recycling district, so I'm going to make good use of those today. Let's see, whoops. So if you see anything going into the bin with maybe a religious leader's face on it, that is not meant. It's not meant to be offensive in any way. It's just a publication that we get here. We have already finished, and I had several months worth, to be honest, because I hadn't been able to make it out to do anything useful with it, and I didn't want to throw it away. So I will be adding that into the bin as well, and I wanted to make mention so that no one took that the wrong way. So we have our 6 holes. Here we go. Let's see if we can get those. You can kind of see this top one here, the bottom. We have our 6 holes in this one, so I'm going to place it into this one with no holes. After I add my blocks, I actually just use some old childhood toys that I had at my mother's house, where I picked up a second project that materials for that I wanted to start. So I'm going to put that in there. Looks like there's a good amount of space for it to catch water. And I will go ahead and just start putting the materials. I'm going to just do a direct dump. These are double bagged. I've got to be honest, I think it's a little gross. And I have been collecting this for I've been collecting this for a couple days now, so honestly I'm not really trying to touch it, especially after having to do some decontamination after going into Public to get my Rubbermaid containers. So I'm going to spread that all around and touching it anyway. So there goes that. And I want to make sure that the paper is broken up enough, so I've got a good medium for them. I've got, got some coffee grinds, as you can see. I did look it up. Looks like there are a couple of Cheerios in here, some pieces of chicken from yesterday. It honestly was a shame when the family didn't finish all of the chicken that I made. I overcooked a bit, and it was fabulous. So we actually were able to save a little bit for lunch today, and the remainder went to welcome our new worm friends into the family. So I want to make sure that this is good and broken up for them. I do not have a paper shredder, so the method I've been using is just to tear off bit by bit and then break it up as I go along. Any medium that you put in for the worms that you intend for them to consume needs to be small enough that it is easy for them to consume. Let's see, I've got quite a bit of practice in breaking things up. I feel like anyone with a toddler or small children can relate. It just kind of automatically comes with things. So now we're dicing food up for the Wormtang clan as well. Toss all this in here. They do have the soil and the poop that they have already made in the container that I bought them in. However, they seem to be thriving quite nicely just in the 24 hours, and honestly that is why I am out here currently trying to beat the sunset to give them a better habitat, because I think they have likely already outgrown the one that I have them in. I would not appreciate being packed into a tight, meant to be temporary container for too long, so just kind of extending the same courtesy to them. I am fully aware that they are worms, but I'm a big giant softie, so I have since purchasing them overcome my sensory issues with worms, and I am just trying to treat them with some kindness, since they are now going to be a very useful and actively contributing part of our household. All right, mix that up a bit. I've got 2 more to go. I do just want to say, since I am recording this in a pandemic, I am doing some coughing, sniffling, sneezing. I am not from this area in the Midwest. I am pretty much allergic to everything here, so especially the tree that I am doing this right next to. So I just wanted to make that part clear. Here we go. This smells terrible because it's essentially garbage, like I said, that I had been collecting for a couple days in anticipation of this project. And the thing about the vermiculture composting that I have read is actually it does not emit odor, or at least not odor like this. Let's see. Keep going here, and I will go back and hit anything that I may have torn a little bit too big. Just continue to break that up for them. Let's see. This one's pretty big. Get that too. Just break it down a little bit further. I put the other half of the paper down to the side, off screen. Just plan to keep going and tearing. Now, as I had mentioned, I am using a filler like this because they do need to be able to stay below the surface. And I went with the full 18-gallon habitat. I do intend to grow this population and continue this project for quite some time, so I did not want to use a smaller, more shallow habitat. I don't want to have to repeat this process later if I don't have to, so I wanted to go ahead and get going now. So I needed to make sure that I have plenty of medium for them to give them the comfort that they need to stay below the surface. So I will miss seeing them, kind of how the name on the channel states. I have been treating them like my children. I've been waking them up, saying good morning, good afternoon, checking in on them, playing them some music, singing them some songs. They are living beings in my household, and we just kind of have a rule about how we treat living beings that are in our household, as well as just living by the general code that we like to leave people, places, and things, worms included, at the very least, the same as or better than how we found them. So hopefully these worms will feel welcome and happy. So I'm just going to mix this up and make sure that it's all good and shredded. Just go through one last time. And I'm also going to pour in some water and distribute. I did 2 cups. See how that goes, and then I'll kind of dig in again just to make sure that it's good and damp for them. Yeah. So as you can see, that was only about a cup. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest. I don't want it to be too moist, but I do want it to be enough of a medium that they can burrow as I continue to add to the system. So I'm going to attempt to lift the laptop up so you can see kind of what I've been doing. That's what we have going on here. And as you can see, it's pretty, it clumps. It has the clump to it to be damp enough to stay that way. And that's essentially the consistency that they need. Also came unplugged. So I'm going to come around and there we go. Make sure that we stay plugged in. Okay. I am going to add a little bit more water. Some of these corners look a bit dry. I don't want the water to gather, so just kind of mopping up any potential excess with the newspaper. I knew that I would have to add water to the system, which is why I waited to do that step until I had already placed it in its most outer container. So it's lost, obviously, a considerable amount of its volume since I started, but it is time to release the worms into their space. So let me lift up again so you can kind of see what's going on in here. Okay, so these are our dudes, or dudettes. They are actually hermaphroditic, so I'm not going to make a gender assignment here. And like I said, I have a serious sensory thing with worms, and so I'm honestly just going to take the top off and dump them upside down for a minute and leave them and see what happens. Hopefully they burrow and you don't have to listen to me girly scream. Scraping the top off. All right. There we go. Be sure to cover them up. Actually going to break up a little bit of this chicken. You can see them moving around a little bit. They're pretty fat and happy. I'd like to keep that going. Hopefully you can see them moving around pretty well. And, oh, I came unplugged again. So here we go. I'm just going to reconnect really quickly and finish off the remainder of the habitat. I'm going to go ahead and, now this is the one with all of the holes drilled into the top, as you can see. And then make sure that we're still pretty well lifted. Get some good oxygen circulation into the system and place it on this. I'm going to put them on the ground too, something sturdy. So I actually, a couple of points before I close, I actually intend to keep the worm tame plan in the crawl space, most likely under my house. At the moment, we live next to a body of water, so it is partially subterranean, and the temperature, I believe this time of year at least, I'll eventually probably move them inside to the garage or something, but I think this time of year they would probably be happiest in there. It's very cool throughout the day. It's also quite dark, and I just overall think that that would be a better habitat for them. They do have to stay, I believe it's between 50 and 90 degrees is their range for survival. I'm not sure at what temperature they would be happiest, but I'm sure that they would be more productive if they were likely somewhere in the middle, in between there, and just damp, dark, well fed, and doing their thing. So I'll check back later. Thank you.